Hello and welcome to the Production Podcast. I'm Cliff Bumgardner.
And I'm Peter Scheibner.
How you doing, Peter?
It's it's been a crazy week for me. I just
Couple
got
of
back.
weeks.
Yeah, I just got back from Brady Evan. Hurricane Brady has hit the Scheibner house. And 6 pounds, 8 ounces, and 100 degrees of adorable.
I got to meet him yesterday. He is adorable.
Yeah, he's pretty cute.
Teeny.
He is. Oh, my word. So my wife and I have little babies. And so for us, actually, 6 pounds, 8 ounces, that's the largest of our kids.
Wow.
You know, third one here, and he's just, for us, a tank.
Wow.
But
he likes to sleep. I saw that.
He does, and he sleeps solidly. You know,
That's
doesn't matter
good.
what you're doing. Kaylee can be over there poking him, and you know, baby. No, nothing. He sleeps right
Wait,
through
she
it.
knows the Justin Bieber song?
Yeah, no,
Huh.
I think it's actually one of her nursery rhymes.
That's concerning. It should be too early for that.
It is.
Oh man, that's scary.
I'm gonna have to rein that one in, and she's adorable, so
Yeah.
I am in trouble.
Yeah, that's problematic. All right, so let's jump right into it this week. What have you been watching?
All right, so this is the first time I've done this. I'm going to talk about a movie I watched that was as bad as I was expecting it to be. My wife and I were flipping around Netflix, and we saw a Nick Cage movie called Next that I remembered seeing previews for when I was back in high school, and I'd never seen it. And I was like, hey, this looked really cool when I was 16. And it was a Nick Cage movie called Next. I don't do this very often. This movie was the most contrived, trying too hard and making no sense movie I have ever seen in my entire life. Let me give you, and this is no crap, the plot. Guy can see 2 minutes into the future. FBI agent thinks if she can track down Guy, who's a magician, and thinks he can see 2 minutes into the can see 2 minutes into the future, if she can track him down, he could potentially find a nuclear bomb.
Okay.
That's it.
Huh.
And my wife is not a movie buff like me. She appreciates movies, but she's not by any stretch as picky as I am with my films. Even she, when we got to the end, when it was the big reveal at the end, she let out an audible groan. It was and of course it's Nick Cage, which there's a few roles Nick Cage has been in that have been good because he's able to just be Nick Cage.
Right.
But when he tries to go outside of Nick Cage, every scene feels like this.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's kind of this Nick Cage sigh in every scene.
Yeah.
And it fell apart. And lots of things.
Who made it, do you know?
You know, I haven't looked it up.
It wasn't even worth it.
It wasn't even worth it. I wasn't even on IMDb while I was watching it. I was just so glued to this is so horrible.
You don't want to read the trivia?
No, that really didn't interest me in this one. No, I mean it actually for me it kind of wraps up a full thought on a couple of conversation pieces. You know, one being story is still incredibly important because they had Julianne Moore, they had Nick Cage, they had not Jessica Alba, not Scarlett Johansson. It's the third one for me that I can never remember her name. But they had a good cast. It was shot well enough. But the story was just not there, and also kind of wraps up another piece. You and I saw the video game high school, Rocket Jump Academy, their film school video on why CG sucks, or does it really?
Yeah, which is a great video, by the way, if you haven't seen it.
If you haven't seen it, YouTube. And honestly, there's a lot of great material on Rocket Jump's film school. If you're wanting to learn more about this craft. And we'll put a link below to the video that we're talking about. But in this, in it, they talked about why sometimes we really nitpick CG. But other times we don't, and it's really not consistent. And it usually comes down to story. If it's a good story, we tend to give bad CG a pass. But if it's a bad story, mediocre CG or just below perfect CG sticks out to us. And in this one, the CG stuck out to me incredibly, even though it really wasn't worse than a lot of stuff I've seen that I've been like, hey, that was pretty good. But the story was so bad, my brain was trying to connect to things to say why it was so bad.
Right.
So
I just looked it up, by the way, Jessica Biel.
Thank you, Jessica.
And it is directed apparently by the guy who directed Die Another Day, the Bond movie, which
explains a lot.
And Triple X State of the Union. He did one episode of The Sopranos. So yeah, that would be the guy.
Yeah.
So not the most illustrative career there. For me, I'm going to be taking kind of a step back to, I guess, like 2007, stepping in my time machine.
That's when mine was as well.
Oh, yeah. I guess it would be 2007, somewhere around in there. Because I have been watching Breaking Bad.
I keep meaning to try that again.
That's how I was for a long time. It was one of those shows that was just so hyped up that I for a while, I mean, it's one of those things where, you know, it gets to a point where you hear about it all the time. You hear about it so much, you're just sick of it. And you're just ready you just don't want to hear about it. And that's how it was. When I really became aware of it was in the last couple of seasons when it was everywhere. And by that point, I was just tired of hearing about it and I didn't watch it. But then about a year and a half ago, I started watching it, got 5 episodes in, was loving it, but something happened. I don't remember if I went on vacation. Something happened and I got distracted and never went back to it. And I've been saying ever since I needed to go back and needed to get back into the show because I know it's amazing. All of my filmmaking friends and everybody on the planet basically says that. And I finally did, and wow. I'm about halfway through season 2 now. And the funny thing is, for any Breaking Bad fans, I stopped watching. The last one I had seen was season 1, episode 5.
Which is about where I got.
If you know the show, episode 6 is where it really becomes the Breaking Bad that we see. When you see something iconic from that show with Heisenberg and the shaved head and the insanity. Episode 6 is kind of where it starts. It's kind of where it jumps off. So I had missed out. And it's just such a smart show. The details that they went into, the character development. I mean, it's season 2 in particular is a lot of very slow character focused just development, just episodes where there's episodes that feel more like the plot of a sitcom than a, you know, kind of hard-edged dramatic television show that have, you know, some of these episodes have nothing to do with the drug trade, they have nothing to do with crime, but they're showing you the effects of what he's been through and what he's done. And they make you care about the characters to the point that they can have an episode where there's not a ton of outside conflict, and yet you care and you want to know what's going to happen. You want to see these people get out of the situation because it means something. You know these people, and it's amazing. It's every bit as good as people said it was. And now I'm just embarrassed it's taking me this long.
Yeah. And yeah, I really do need to sit down and catch up. So episode 6, you say?
Yes, episode 6 is your first real glimpse into what the show will become. And you and I were talking about this the other day, how Breaking Bad represents kind of an interesting way into character and into story, where it is.
Well, it's one of the first shows with a major anti-hero as your main character.
Right, and also it plays off of that idea of, I mean, it plays into a lot of things. It taps into what I think House of Cards taps into, which is, you know, showing you how in our society today and in our country today, the importance of power and the importance of feeling like you have the ability to get an edge over your circumstances and over the people in your life and over the, you know, it's a power fantasy in a lot of ways. And it's just fascinating the way it plays out. And I mean, I know I'm the last person on earth to say how amazing Bryan Cranston is. I mean, that's been the theme for 20 years.
This year.
Yeah, but he honestly, in this show, I don't know that I've ever seen an actor have more dynamic range, for lack of a better term, where in one scene he will be sad and beaten and defeated and kind of pathetic and pitiable, and then 5 minutes later he is a vicious, terrifying monster.
Kind of like Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah, it very much is, and I don't know how he pulled it off. I mean, just from I'm just an acting fan. I love watching actors, and I appreciate what they do so much, and what he did was in this show was amazing, and he deserved every bit of praise he got for it. So, if you are like me and haven't seen Breaking Bad, which I know you haven't seen very much of it, it is well worth your time. Okay. So we have kind of a cool thing we're doing this week for our main topic. You guys can't see this if you're just listening to the audio. Of course, remember that in addition to the there's the audio sensation right there.
That's what we're doing. Can you tell what this is?
Yes, in addition to the audio podcast, of course, you can watch this on YouTube at our AMZG TV channel, so you can see our radio faces. But what we have in front of us right now is a bowl, and this bowl has some slips of paper, and on these slips of paper we have written a lot of, certainly not all, but a lot of the upcoming movies through the end of this year. A lot of the big ones, the ones we're excited about, the ones, some of these we don't know a lot about. But what we're going to do is we're going to take turns, each going in, grabbing a piece of paper, taking a look at it, taking a look at the movie that's on it, and then talking about it. Why we're excited about it, if we're excited about it, and how we think it's going to do when it comes out. So we have everything in here that ranges from smaller indie-ish films to Star Wars. So I'm interested to see where it goes. So if you will do the honor of taking the first slip.
Oh, you're going to be so upset. I got Black Mass.
Ooh.
Okay, so I just saw the trailer for this one a few days ago, did a little bit of research. This film excites me.
Me too.
For one reason only, Johnny Depp. It's the first time I've seen... Okay, so Johnny Depp is a very broad actor. He can do anything he wants.
Right.
But it's the first time I've seen Johnny Depp that I don't feel like it's a Johnny Depp character.
Right.
He's playing a hardened mobster. And I don't know what prosthetics and costuming and what they've done to his face, but I don't recognize him.
Yeah.
It wasn't until about halfway through the trailer, I was like, holy crap, that's Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
Black Mass, I think it looks like it is almost a return to form to the mobster saga, where it felt a little bit more like The Godfather. It felt a little bit more like Scarface, and a little bit less like Gangster Squad, a little bit less like some of your more polished. It didn't have a very polished feel. So Black Mass excites me. However, it excites me because I think it's an art film.
Yeah.
I do not think it's going to have commercial appeal. I think a bar for success for Black Mass, my guess the market will probably say $40 million. Which, I mean, obviously if you're an independent filmmaker, you're like, oh, that's so much money. But for a film like this that has the level of actors it has, and I'm sure the production budget behind it, I don't think this is going to be a huge domestic commercial success.
I would agree. It is... Having Johnny Depp is going to give them a leg up, because I think a lot of people, a lot of just moviegoers are going to be intrigued. They've seen him in Pirates of the Caribbean. They know him as something completely different, and I think he might be a good way in to more of a hard-edge crime film for a lot of people. But I'm just excited to see it.
They definitely have an all-star cast. I mean, Benedict Cumberbatch and
Kevin Bacon.
This will be worth seeing. So
yes.
I will be going to go see it.
I'm
I would
pumped.
encourage our audience. This is one that I would actually say go see, because I think it'll probably be worthwhile to see it in theaters as opposed to waiting for it on DVD.
And also, please support these types of movies in the theater. It makes a big difference, especially these days. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to go in. I'm trying not to grab any that I can see. Let's see. Ooh, this is interesting. We were actually just kind of talking about this before we rolled mics. I got Crimson Peak. Crimson Peak is a film I have to admit I don't know a ton about. It is a Guillermo del Toro film. I love del Toro, and I'm very excited. This seems like a return to form for him. Going back to the world of horror films, which is what he does incredibly well. He's such a great thinker in that world, and so original and creative, and he has such a great knowledge base. If you ever listen to an interview with him, he's just a fan of a big fan of horror and of monster films and of H.P. Lovecraft and of just that whole world. And I'm excited to see what he does. Obviously, one of the most exciting things here is the cast. I mean, I saw Tom Hiddleston and Jessica Chastain.
Maya Wasikowska.
Yeah, I mean, seeing those folks in a horror film is fascinating to me.
Yeah, I mean, especially for Jessica Chastain and Tom Hiddleston, it is a bit of a break for them from their normal fare.
Yeah, and I mean, Del Toro is a great. I feel like he does get great performances as well. Mm-hmm. So I'm excited to see him working with people of that caliber, actors in a lot of ways, and what he can do. And it's a good opportunity. There's a guy here at the studio, Jeremiah, who is a huge horror fan, but typically not a huge fan of the horror movies that come out these days. I think this could be a great opportunity to see some really good commercial horror back in the theaters.
As opposed to like some of the ones you see, like, I know Sinister 2 is in right now.
Right, exactly.
The Paranormal Activities.
Right.
This is probably a bit more of a return to classic horror.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw the trailer for it. Honestly, it reminded me a little bit of Signs meets The Ring. Mm-hmm. In just the visual look and the pacing of what I could tell from the ad. It definitely had more of that type of a feel to it than your Paranormal Activities. It'll
be interesting to see. I mean, we're talking about Paranormal Activity and Sinister and those movies. They tend to make a lot of money because they are. I mean, they're people know what to expect. Let's put it that way when they go into these movies. So they make them cheap and they make a ton of money. It's going to be very interesting to see what a really devoted kind of probably art house, knowing Del Toro, horror film, what it can do at the box office. Mm-hmm. I really don't know what to expect because I don't know what that particular market can support right now. So that's going to be interesting to see, and I think if it does well, it could bode well for horror films, which I know you're not a big fan, but I love horror movies. Mm-hmm. So I hope that goes well.
Yeah.
So.
All right. I'm making a mess. All right, let's see. Oh, okay. I have a confession. I know nothing about this one. Sicario.
Yes, I don't know anything about it.
I'm pulling up IMDb right now.
Except that Roger Deakins shot it, and that's why I want to see it.
And Emily Blunt. I know that. Okay. An idealistic FBI agent is enlisted by an elected government task force to aid in the escalating war against drugs in the border area between the U.S. and Mexico.
That could be interesting.
It could be. I mean, I'm looking at the poster here, and it looks interesting. I do think I've seen the trailer now that I'm looking at this poster.
Was that Benicio del Toro? Go scroll back down to the cast. Yeah,
it was Benicio del Toro. Ooh.
That makes it even more exciting.
It does. And Emily Blunt.
Yeah, Josh Brolin.
Which this looks like it's a little bit of a different film for her.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. Emily Blunt is so diverse. She was in Edge of Tomorrow, which then became Live, Die, Repeat because nobody can remember the name.
Which is still not as good as the original title, All You Need Is Kill.
Yep. And then she was in Into the Woods, which is a musical. And now this, which almost looks like No Country for Old Men meets a lot more violence.
It almost, I mean, when I first hear about it, it almost feels like a Robert Rodriguez meets Tarantino kind of crime movie. Like a dirty, in-your-face.
Yeah, I'm going to have to say I usually try and keep a pretty good pulse on what's coming out and what's going to be successful. This one has flown so under the radar for me.
Yeah, me too.
I think it's going to fly under the radar for too many other people as well.
Who's the director? What's he done?
Let's see. We've got Villeneuve. Let's see. He has done
I know that name.
Prisoners, Incendiaries, Enemy. Nothing huge. Prisoners was probably his biggest. That had Hugh Jackman and Jack Gyllenhaal. But it was not a commercial success. I think this is probably, I would expect more of the same.
Yeah.
Probably looking for somewhere in the $30 million range, but that I think would probably be a cap.
Yeah, but I mean I'm very intrigued. I kind of like the fact that it hasn't had a lot of buzz because I feel like it can kind of be a surprise.
Yeah, I mean this is a good indication. They have a $32 million budget. Which is usually a pretty good indicator when you have that level of cast that they don't expect a lot out of this.
But also, it would tell me that the cast saw something in it because obviously they're not doing it for a paycheck.
Right. There's nobody Unless the production value is nil and it's just these names, which we've seen that before. A good example of that would be Night and Day,
right?
Where they got Cameron Diaz and Tom Cruise, and they paid top dollar for Cameron Diaz and Tom Cruise, and everything else was horrible,
right?
So it's hard to say. I'm not sure I'll catch this one in theaters.
I think I will. If only, for another opportunity to see Roger Deakins' cinematography.
Yeah.
That's always worth it.
That is.
All right, next one. Bridge of Spies.
I wanted that one.
I am so pumped for this movie. If you're not familiar, this is the Steven Spielberg film this year. Tom Hanks, set during the Cold War. In what looks to be the plot, as I understand it, is he is going to negotiate a prisoner exchange behind enemy lines, and in Russia. And it looks like, we keep using the phrase today, but it seems to be the theme this year. It looks like a Spielberg return to form. The trailer is so it's engaging to me in two ways. One, because it looks like Spielberg. For everything you see in the trailer that makes you go, oh yeah, this is the guy. This is an Amblin movie. But also, there are several things that don't feel like Spielberg in the trailer, which also really interest me. The use of
incredible wides,
those distorted wide angle shots in the trailer really grabbed my eye from the first time I saw it. Yeah,
it's not like it's wide panoramics. It's
right.
A 14 millimeter, 16 millimeter lens.
Right.
In a hallway.
Yeah, or on a doorway, which is fascinating. I think that's such an interesting choice, and I'm very intrigued to see how that plays with the story, to see why that choice was made. Tom Hanks, I'd watch him read a phone book. I love Tom Hanks, probably my favorite living actor.
We should see if we can get him on the podcast to read a phone book.
Yeah, just hand him a phone book and tell him to go at it.
Yep, that'd be our most viewed video.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Although I feel like if Tom Hanks was here, that is the last thing that would come to my mind. I feel like there'd be a lot of other things to talk about. But yeah, I am pumped for Bridge of Spies. It's Spielberg, so there's a certain level of success that's kind of expected.
Yeah.
Certainly, it's probably a movie we'll hear about come Oscar time. I would expect. And probably one that's going to do very well. It's also it's interesting to me in terms of content, how it kind of goes back to the kinds of films I don't see being made much these days. A very a period piece, a very focused piece, a character piece. It looks like in a lot of ways. It's interesting. It doesn't look like a movie that's going to have a lot of big explosions or anything. It's a lot more grounded, and seems like a very engaging story. So I'm excited.
Well, the moviegoer, and this is more the moviegoer in me than the filmmaker in me. I love what it does because it takes the same concept as a film as Scorpio, which
excuse me, people, I hit my mic.
Same concept as a film like Sicario, which is to tell a character story.
Right.
That typically films like that don't get a budget. Typically films like that will get, even if it's a Hollywood production, will get $20, $30 million. But because it's Spielberg, because of the name recognition, they're going to throw $150 million at it, and you get everything that you love in an art house film and in a character film, but you get it big.
Mm-hmm.
You get it with sets. Real sets. You get it with extras, tons of extras.
Tom Hanks.
And Tom Hanks.
Right.
And you get everything that you want in a movie when I go to the movies, but you get a film that's actually worth seeing as well. And I think Spielberg's done a great job bridging into that realm here in the last decade.
Yeah.
Really, since Schindler's List.
Mm-hmm. Certainly.
He's kind of shifted more, a lot more of his films. He still has the Minority Reports and the Munichs, which are much more, commercial, fun, fast action films. But he's done a lot more, obviously, Saving Private Ryan, Lincoln, War Horse. Some of these films that are a little bit less traditional. Blockbuster fare. Yeah. But he's made them blockbusters because he's behind it.
Yeah, for sure.
That's neat to see. Neat to see.
So I say we each do one more.
Okay. Please be Star Wars. I've got two. I'm going to go with this one. Okay, I got it. I'm glad we drew this one. The Martian.
Ah, yes. Oh, my goodness. I'm so excited.
Yeah. Okay, so the book was incredible. To start with, this is actually one of the few Oh, okay, not one of the few. I actually will say this from time to time, but the Martian's one, I would recommend reading the book before you watch the movie. I'd say the same thing for the Hunger Games. There's a few others out there, but the Martian's one, read the book because you'll get a better appreciation, I think, for the story. Because there's no way they're gonna be able to fit all that story into that movie.
Well, the character specifically, I mean, there is very much a action-oriented plot in The Martian, but the character of Mark Watney is what ties that entire story together, what makes it work, and the depth of character in the book and the humor. It's just amazing, and to be Andy Weir's first novel is incredible that he pulled this off.
I think this is going to be a surprise.
Yeah.
Here's why. I think it's going to kind of follow the same trend as we've seen, because it seems like every year we're getting that space film. So we had Gravity, then we had Interstellar. I think The Martian is going to be this year's space movie. I think it's going to be successful, and I think it's going to be successful not necessarily because of its opening weekend, but I think word of mouth is going to get out. Obviously they've got an all-star cast. It has Jessica Chastain, Matt Damon, the social.
Yes, him.
Jeff
Daniels?
Yes. Jeff Daniels. For some reason I had Jeff Bridges in my head. And I know it's not Jeff Bridges.
Jeff Bridge of Spies.
Jeff Bridge of Spies.
I would watch that.
I wouldn't. It sounds like a porno.
Okay, yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
I mean, and also, again, Ridley Scott returning to what he does best.
Yeah.
Going back to sci-fi.
Yeah.
In a big, powerful way.
Well, and I love the way they're treating certain elements. Like, for instance, his journal from the book. They're not turning it into a video journal. So that we as the audience can kind of get into his head a little bit and understand what he's doing. I love the just even from the trailer, the conflict that you see between NASA, the crew, and Matt Damon's character,
who are in 3 different places in space,
right?
Which is fascinating,
and that they're all seemingly working together, but also kind of working on their own to try and solve this issue that is, we got to get this guy off this planet. Right.
And have you seen their viral marketing that they've been doing? I don't know if this is in the film, and if it's not in the film, that makes it even more genius. But they have a series where it's like the astronauts have just come out of training, and they're being essentially debriefed or being talked to by like a psychologist, and they're just sitting there talking to the psychologist, and in the little interviews they've been putting like 15, 30, 45-second snippets on Twitter and Facebook and stuff like that. In the interviews, you understand their characters so perfectly. The characterization is wonderful. The writing in those little bit pieces is wonderful. And it honestly seems like something they wrote and designed and shot to be just marketing, viral marketing. And it's fantastic. I can't wait for the movie. Well, I read the book last year, and as I was reading it, I was going, wow, I'd kill to make this into a movie. 2 months later, they announced the Ridley Scott version. So,
that's exciting.
I'll give it to him. I'll let him get away with that. All right, last one.
What's it gonna be?
I'm gonna throw some stuff on the table. I'm gonna try to get down to one at the bottom.
And we'll give some honorable mentions, ones that didn't get drawn that we are.
Oh, yes, The Hateful Eight.
Oh,
yes, absolutely.
Before you dive into that,
yes.
Other films you need to get out to see this year. The Revenant is one. Star Wars is got to be the top of everyone's list. If you only go to one film this year, it has to be Star Wars because that's going to be an experience you won't get to have again.
Yeah, absolutely. It's cool to have Star Wars back in the theater. I think it's going to be good. Of course, we have no idea, but just to have Star Wars in a theater is pretty dang cool.
Yeah. What else?
Honestly, I'm excited for the end of the Hunger Games franchise. I've been pleasantly surprised by that series. There's so much good stuff coming out.
Zemeckis has a film, The Walk.
Don't know if that one's really something I'm interested in necessarily. And maybe we can talk about that in the future. It's a good year coming up for film. I feel like there's a lot of really interesting stuff here in the last half of the year that I'm intrigued by. But The Hateful Eight is something that has had my attention for a while. If you remember from our podcast a few, I suppose a month or so ago now, where I talked about Tarantino being a huge influence for me. I love Tarantino. I'm a huge fan of his work. And Django Unchained, his first Western, is one of my favorite films. I adore that film. It's one of my favorite screenplays
First
ever
one
written.
you and I ever saw together.
Absolutely. And I remember when Hateful Eight first got leaked, I did not read it because I figured I would see it or experience it the way Tarantino wanted me to, because I trust him as a creator. And I was very sad to hear when he first canceled it, when he said, well, if people just want to turn my art into a commodity, I'm not interested, and he canceled it. But I was so excited when he came back and said, you know what, let's make the movie. And I was eagerly awaiting the first trailer to see that 70 millimeter and to see, how I was gonna go. And the trailer did not disappoint. It felt like an old school trailer. It didn't give away the plot. It didn't give away everything. It just introduced you to the characters, let you know the basic premise, and let you know you're in for a lot of fun. He said he wants to make one more Western after this, that he kind of wants to be remembered as a Western director, which I think is fascinating. You don't see a lot of Westerns anymore. So to see a Western being done by a guy of his caliber, I mean, obviously, like I said, Django was amazing, and I cannot wait to see what he does this time around.
There's a rumor floating around that he only has an hour of it edited so far. Do you think that's true?
I would find that hard to believe.
Yeah.
I mean, just knowing him, he's, as far as I know, he's not a guy to screw up deadlines. I mean, he seems to be fairly together in his stuff.
Well, I wouldn't say together. With his stuff, maybe, but have you seen him in it? Sometimes he can go a little bit bananas.
He's an interesting guy. He's an interesting guy for sure. But no, I think this is a fitting one to end on, just because it is. It's, to me, it's what I love about movies. Like you said, seeing, kind of art house movies, seeing, stuff like that in the theater, on the big screen, with an all-star cast, with a huge level of production value. That's what I'm expecting to see here, is the kind of films that I like, the kind of films I like to make, but times 10 and up on the big screen, exciting, fun, funny. To me, his work embodies a lot of what I love about film and what I think movies should be, and this is looking like it's just going to stack up.
And honestly, at this point, Tarantino's this will be his 8th film, so he's 8 films into his 10, and we haven't been disappointed yet. I don't think you'll be disappointed.
Yeah. I also don't think he's going to stop at 10. He keeps saying he is, but I mean, that was a great thing when they did, I think, the live table read of The Hateful Eight. Where Sam Jackson told him, he's like, we all know that you're full of crap. We all know that you're going to make films until the day you drop down dead. And I hope that's true.
Maybe he moves into producing.
Well, he had said that when he stopped making films, he was going to start writing novels and writing books on writing, which would also be fascinating. And I would love to see what he does with that. So,
well, we'll find out.
Yeah, we will see.
And Tarantino, just so you know, if you do listen to our podcast, you're welcome on at any time.
Yeah,
we'd love to talk to you about your 11th film.
We
actually have some ideas for your 11th film.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah,
I don't. That's one I think I would just completely freeze up.
Yeah,
if he was
I'd have
here.
to do that interview. It'd be me sitting here having a nice conversation with Mr. Tarantino, and you over there drooling.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. And live tweeting, how is this my life?
Yeah.
How is this my life?
Let's hope that we wouldn't end up in another video online of a interview with him melting down, because there's a few of those as it is, and I love watching them, but I would not want to be a part of one.
Yeah, I wouldn't be the antagonistic lady, though, saying, you're making violent movies, making violent movies. Aren't you afraid you're making violent movies?
If you guys don't know what we're talking about, there's an interview from, I believe it was Kill Bill 1, where for some reason this channel that he was being interviewed by, he was doing a press junket, it was a satellite interview, and I think it was I think they got like the Family Entertainment reporter to interview him, which was just dumb. And you can look it up online, look it up on YouTube. It's something like Tarantino Angry Interview or something. But basically, she just starts berating him for making violent movies and the impact that could have on children.
It's fun, Jane. It's fun.
Exactly.
Why do you do it? Because it's fun.
Yeah, he comes back in beautiful fashion. It's well worth a watch, and it made me love him even more. for just his personality and his outlook on film. So, but yeah, I think this was interesting. I think we have an exciting year ahead of us for film. We're going to be covering a lot of these on the podcast in the coming weeks. Seeing some of these, I think we may do episodes on specifically. I know like Star Wars, maybe Hateful Eight would be a good one. So we can really get into detail. But we would love to know what you guys are looking forward to seeing. If there's anything we didn't get a chance to cover, we're probably going to do this again at some point because there's a lot of stuff left in here that we didn't have a chance to talk about. See, there's more. There's more where that came from. So we'd love to hear. Leave us a comment. Of course, you can find us on iTunes and on YouTube. So wherever you're watching or listening right now, you can go to the other one. And leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. Let us know what you're watching and what you're looking forward to here in the next year. And maybe we'll get a chance to talk about it soon. Of course, as always, you can follow us online. We have a couple places you can find us. In addition to our own private Twitter and Instagram accounts and all that, which we'll plug in a second, you can also follow Amazing Studios. You can follow us on Twitter at Amazing Studios 1. Facebook is Amazing Studios. YouTube is Amazing Studios Inc. -AMZG, or online. You can go and look at our portfolio, look at the work we do, see that we maybe know what we're talking about.
Yeah, that's AmazingStudiosInc.com.
Absolutely. So and also you can find me. I am Cliff Baumgartner on Twitter.
And on Instagram, I'm Peter the Director.
Yes, and you're actually active.
I am. I even sent out one this morning.
The podcast has to remind you to do it.
Yeah. Well, so there's a long running gag that I'm really good at producing content for social media, but I suck at social media because I never post. I mean, if you go to my Facebook, it wasn't up until just about a month ago that there was a post even from the last year.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've got kids I could be posting about. I've got shoots I could be posting about, and so I'm getting better at that. My Instagram, I'm really turning it into a professional account, and I'm thinking about it in those terms, and so I'm going to try and keep that as current as possible with behind the scenes looks at what we're doing, and really it's a good way to kind of get a good idea of who we are and what it is that I do as a DP.
And we have a cool shoot starting actually end of this week that we'll both be tweeting about and Instagramming about.
Yeah, you're going to want to follow that one.
That'll be a fun one to follow, so and we can't wait to talk about that in the coming weeks. But until next time, for the Production Podcast, I'm Cliff Baumgartner.
And I'm Peter Scheibner. And don't forget to craft a story worth hearing.